Good evening, everyone. We have with us today Colonel Amitabh Shergill. Colonel Shergill is an ex-officer from the Armored Corps, and sir has now been, after his service with the Indian Army, he took a voluntary release with around 22, 23 years of service, and now he has been a leader in the supply chain and logistics space, wherein he has been almost for 4 years with Delivery, which is a renowned startup and providing the logistics support to a lot of big marquee brands like Amazon and Flipkart, etc. So, sir, we have invited sir today to help us understand the basic nuances of supply chain and logistics. Welcome to today's talk, sir.
Thanks, Vipul, for inviting me to this event. It's a pleasure to be here, share my thoughts.
Sir, so my first question would be, sir, in very layman, what are the five basic operational requirements of an effective supply chain and logistic management to ensure that the show goes on? People, the retail stacks are well supplied, people homes are well supplied, and all kind of contingencies are catered for. So how do you go about it, sir?
Okay, so Vipul, I'll just generally give a little bit of a backdrop to Delivery. Delivery is like a third-party logistics company, so it's the largest in India in terms of the reach that we have and in terms of the portfolio of products that we deal with. So, if you were to ask me about the five principles, I think some of the five, in my opinion, and what would be most important first is flexibility and adaptability, because this is a very dynamic environment. Next is foresight, to be able to plan for contingencies, to be able to plan for any issues which may crop up, because, like I said, it's a very dynamic field. There are many intangibles which happen or likely to happen. A simple thing, an example is, let's say if there is a truckers strike, you hear about these things in the newspaper that something like this is likely to come up. You need to plan for it. The third, I think, would be most important amongst all of these is the teamwork of the entire team coming together and being able to produce the results. Process orientation, again, very, very important. The process with regard to service levels, the time in which the orders are being fulfilled has to be very, very pinpoint and accurate. And lastly, I think most important, which also from the customer's point of view, is the speed. The speed of delivery, the speed of work, which enhances at all, the service levels. So I think these five, that is flexibility, foresight, teamwork, process orientation, and speed. I think these five, in my opinion, would be really, really important.
Sir, you made a point that there could be some events which probably are can disrupt the supply line, say a truckers proposed strike or something like that. Similarly, sir, and you have been an armored corps officer, so you would have faced that also. You have been for a very, very long time dealing with very heavy equipment. So, how do you carry out preventive maintenance in the supply chain? This thing to make sure that the wheels are always turning, sir.
So here in this case, we have sorters, automatic sorters. We have certain other devices, like hand-operated devices, pallet trucks, which are there, battery-operated pallet trucks, which are there. So we have, particularly for the sorters, we have a downtime during the day, which is about an hour or a little less at times. If the requirement is very immediate, or if the load is very high, then we tend to reduce on the downtime. But these automatic sorters need a certain amount of downtime every day. Whereas for other infrastructure in terms of HOPTs or BOPTs that we talk of, or certain other such infrastructure, there is really no downtime because it is continuous work, because the facility does not shut down. We have redundancies with us. We cater for additional infrastructure, and the wheels keep turning throughout the day. So to be honest, downtime is not really happening as far as the logistics sphere is concerned. It's 24/7, 365 days a year.
So, given that, sir, how do you still, if there is an emergency, although you said that you have redundancies in place and etc., still, how do you respond to emergencies to ensure that the downtime is actually not there?
So like I said, that there is technically no downtime. While let's say if there is a problem with the sorters, or we have staff which is specifically dedicated to looking after the issues. Definitely, there can be a breakdown which happens. Then really, what we do is that we shift on to a manual process to ensure that the shipment movement keeps happening, or we start reallocating that particular manpower for certain other tasks to ensure that those tasks which would take a certain amount of time get done up a little faster. Because of the manpower that we have specifically dedicated to looking after these resources, spares, supplies are always kept with us. Sometimes there is a network failure. We have a network team also at the back end which is looking after this equipment. So it is, to be very honest, I think in my entire tenure that I have been there with delivery so far, we've not really had a breakdown going beyond an hour at the most, wherein it has been a serious issue or if there has been a certain breakdown in a small part of it. But the sorters are such that we can utilize other sectors of the sorter as well. So the wheels keep moving, like I said.
So now, since you're saying that you shift to manual work, etc., in case there is a downtime,
Mhm.
I would rather like to understand what are the smart transportation and storage enterprise technologies which are being used now to make sure that the logistic chains are constantly connected and fed, and I mean the pipeline is continuously moving from the producer to last mile delivery.
Yeah, so we have very separate verticals for the first mile and mid mile and last mile, as well as even return logistics for that matter. We have separate facilities. In some cases, for cost optimizations, we also have co-located facilities, as in which we call gateways or hubs, which have both first mile and mid mile operations located within the same facility. Storage is also handled sector wise depending on the kind of load that we are getting. Each facility can range in size from 30,000 square feet to even 5.5 lakh to 6 lakh square feet facilities, depending on what kind of load moves through a facility. That is as per our network design and as per our plans, and accordingly the storage is handled. So it at times, like I said, we do have say embargoes on certain territories. Like let's say if Leh has because of snowfall the road routes are closed, we are not able to move shipments, so we have to store it to a certain point in terms of movement of shipments, because everything cannot move by air. So that kind of space is already built in into the centers. At times it becomes a pinch, no doubt about it. But yeah, we have enough of storage space for that kind of eventuality as well.
Okay. So my question was not just the storage space. What kind of technologies are being employed to reduce inefficiencies and make the systems more effective and efficient, sir?
So it's all technology driven. To be very honest, we have our own dashboards where we are maintaining the visibility on each and every metric, whether it is inbound operations, whether it is outbound operations, floor operations, how a shipment gets picked up by for each activity. There is a scan which is on that shipment, which tells us as to when a particular shipment has been picked up, from which sector it is being picked up, where that shipment is lying. So most of it is technology driven, connected to our devices, which is basically a handheld device which the off-roll or the on-roll manpower is utilizing out there. This gives us visibility also of how much of load is going into a truck, how much of time it takes to load a particular size of a vehicle. And accordingly, we are able to maintain our service levels because we are given very clear-cut timelines as to how much time is required to load or unload a certain size of a vehicle. Similarly, picking a shipment from a particular sector and moving it to the dock for outbound operations, and vice versa when a truck comes in and gets placed on the dock, and thereafter the shipments move from the dock to the sector in which they are placed. It is all tech driven to easily monitor it, to be honest, so that we get to know as to where a particular shipment is. Sometimes due to labeling issues also. The shipments tend to get misplaced, but because of scans and CCTV cameras that we have within the facility, we are able to trace them out.
So now this, what you're telling me is typically a very data intensive kind of an environment. So you must be, I'm assuming you are collecting all this data and using a lot of data analytics to continue to improve your operations. Any insights into that as to how you are further tightening or making your operations more efficient?
Yes, it's driven from our central headquarters where we have a specific data analytics team, wherein we have specific dashboards for each particular phase of the operation, for each facility that we have. We can literally monitor the productivity of each man. Uh, that is how we monitor our service levels, our factors like aging, factors like how much time it's taking to load a particular truck and move it out in time. It is all related to the network design as well. So it is very heavily data intensive. Specific dashboards which are given to us is what we monitor out here.
Sir, would you be able to touch a bit upon as to how you are approaching space planning to ensure optimal utilization of the warehousing and parking spaces and movement and all? Because from layman, what I understand, it's a lot of things, a lot of people, and a lot of vehicular movement.
Yeah, so here the space is as per sectors. Now that makes it a lot easier. For just to give you a very simple example, in a particular warehouse, the connections from one particular warehouse to another, let's say from point A to point B, there could be numerous connections. Let's say from say Delhi, a vehicle could be going to Chandigarh, could be going to Guwahati, could be going to Mumbai. So accordingly, we have sector spaces for each particular hub that is driven by the network design as to what is the fastest way a shipment can reach from point A to point B, whether it goes via a particular route, whether it goes directly. That is planned by the network design team as to what is the capacity of a particular hub, what all routes can be mapped from a particular hub, and accordingly the sector spaces are worked out. And also the plan with regard to what is the kind of load which is coming in when it is an in transit hub. Accordingly, we earmark the space for it. At times, like I said, the sectors tend to overflow, or let's say when we have sale periods where the amount of shipments that we receive are beyond projections. That is catered for in-house. We make sure that we have space for that. Sometimes the sectors are overflowing, no doubt about it. It becomes a little difficult to find shipments at that particular point of time, and service levels do suffer. But certain redundancies are built into the system wherein we can keep these within the warehouse itself by creating additional space. Again, like I said, this creation of space is again done via data. When the entire warehouse is mapped on a dashboard and we create spaces so that we don't lose track of a shipment. It is not that it is just picked up and put randomly. This is done when a space is created for placing a shipment out there.
Okay. So since you mentioned overflowing inventories during special times, say a promotional offer or some kind of a sales offer, and so there is two-way traffic, there are a lot of orders coming in, a lot of supplies coming in, and so naturally, besides the fact that in those times you would be putting in 12, 14 hours a day,
Yeah.
what are the other things, or if you could share some experience of a particular small crisis situation you handled?
Yes, it becomes quite manic. To be very honest, particularly let's say the Diwali period or the 1 month before Diwali. Now that is the period of the year that the company generally builds up to and builds up its resources, knowing that we would be picking probably double or even in some cases triple the load that we normally pick up. And at that point of time, we, like I said, that's where foresight and planning comes into play. And we ramp up our manpower for that particular period, whether it is for picking up shipments or processing the shipments within the hub. We also make sure that the fleet vendors are on board, wherein they are able to provide us some more number of vehicles at a very, very short notice. It is also within the hub, like I said, space creation needs to be done. We also are aware generally that a particular sector or the movement from point A to point B in a particular sector is going to be a lot higher. We tend to allocate additional space for that. Here also there are some cases where because of the huge volume of shipments, obviously the timelines tend to suffer a little bit in terms of the turnaround time given to us in terms of our service levels. So we tend to temper the expectations of the client also out here. He is also aware that because of the extra load there might be slippages in terms of time, and we also tend to take a little bit of extra time from him with regard to the turnaround time of shipments, because the volume is quite high.
When you're moving logistics, I mean, especially when wheels are moving, there are different kind of modes you would be using from the first mile to the last mile, and for the return, this thing, there could be, is it mostly the road transport or you using air and
Both road and air. So we use both road and air. We don't use rail as a means of transportation. So primarily by road and air.
does it involve further classification and operational difficulties, or I mean, because of the overlap of transport, or it's like, I mean, more coordination is required?
With regard to, sorry, I didn't get that question.
So more complexity has come into the system because you have another mode of transport, so changing of cargo and then loading, reloading, etc., etc. So how does that play out in terms of the complexity of operations, and how is that handled?
So it's not that we decide suddenly that, okay, we should send this by air. It is based on what the client wants, and accordingly the client books it, whether it is booked by road or by express. So the shipments which are booked by express are sent by air. And let's say in a certain case where I gave an example of, let's say, Leh Ladakh, which gets snowed in during the winter seasons and the roads shut down, then we let the client know at that point of time that we will not be able to move the shipments by road, and that he would need to manifest these shipments by air for us to be able to move it by air. Air has its own certain restrictions in terms of dangerous goods and DG goods, as we call them, and what can be carried and what cannot be carried, whether they are batteries or laptops which have used batteries in them. So those kind of restrictions are already apprised to the client and in advance. In some cases where if there has been a slippage or delay by road, then we take that call to send it by air so that we make sure that the client experience doesn't suffer.
So from what I understand, sir, your work involves a lot of advanced planning because of
Yeah.
various environmental factors, etc. And you are also using services from a lot of third parties, vendors, contractors, suppliers, etc., etc. How do you kind of ensure that your suppliers and vendors are meeting your SLAs, and how are they being force multipliers to you?
So here in this case, the vendors that we're dealing with are primarily to deal with the manpower, right? So because like I said, it's a very dynamic process. At times we need to get in more manpower because of the load factor increasing. So we have these manpower vendors who work through our field HR teams. We provide the requirement that, okay, we require say 20 to 30 boys for a period of say 2 months, or let's say if there is people have moved on, or there may be certain other factors which may have caused, like a festival where we know that a particular festival is going to lead to a lot of absenteeism. Then we deal with the vendors, speak to them. Our team is there that we need to cater for a certain number of manpower during this particular period, and that we need to provide it. These vendors are onboarded officially and work on contract, whether it is for fleet or manpower primarily. So no real issues with regard to handling with the vendors. We have teams which are specifically dealing with this.
Sir, how do you foresee with the Indian economy expanding? We are now almost a $4 trillion economy and going ahead bigger. So, do you see that the logistics space is going to become even bigger, and there are also going to be a lot of export-oriented international logistics getting operated from India because of the manufacturing capacity which we are increasing?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, logistics is an ever-growing space. I think now there is a lot of emphasis on the national logistics policy, which a lot of you may have read about as well, wherein a large number of players are coming into this space. Like I said, Delivery is just a third-party logistics company and the largest in India today. And there are a large number of organizations which are also in this particular space. We have international companies like DP World also coming in with in terms of huge amount of investments in the logistics space, and that is both road, rail, air, freight, shipping lines. So this is just going to be increasing, and the number of investments, or rather, I would say the quantum of investments which are coming into the country is quite a pointer in this direction that it's an ever-growing space and is likely to continue.
Okay. So in terms of the sheer volumes and the size of operations, where do you see the growth curve for the industry next 10 odd years?
So the growth of the industry, like I said, there is a lot more in terms of coordination between agencies now. It's a lot more streamlined. The first step in the direction is the national logistics policy, enunciated by the Prime Minister of the country. So there is, I really can't place a number on top of it as to what would be the quantum in terms of the $1 billion number that maybe we're looking at. But like I said, it can easily be about 3x of what we're doing currently.
3x of where we are as of today.
As of today, yeah.
So would it be a fair assumption to say that logistic is going to be a major employer in times to come?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is going to be a major employer. Howsoever much the tech backup comes in, at the end of the day, it's the man who's going to be involved in it in a very big way. You have loading of trucks, you have manpower working within the facilities. Automation is only going up to a certain level, particularly with regard to third-party logistics. Similarly, when it comes to air and freight loading, so very much a growing industry in terms of manpower utilization.
My last question, sir, would you be able to say that in times to come, a lot of new startups are going to be there in this space, just like delivery, and take newer bets because of the growth expected?
I cannot say if there are going to be any more new startups because there are a large number of companies already in the space. There are some which we have not even heard of, but they're already have started in this particular space of third-party logistics. Delivery today is a more than 10 years old company, and we are way beyond the stage of a startup now. Company is also public almost 2 years now. So it's a very complex process. It takes a while for it to mature for any particular company. We, like I said, handle everything, whether it is B2B, B2C, direct to customer, and other such lines of business. There are smaller companies which are coming in, which are dealing with primarily, say, B2B or just B2B and a certain amount of B2C. But as of now, there are small new companies coming in with more emphasis on technology and how they can speed it up. But yeah, like I said, it's a growing industry. There will be small players who are coming in. But to grow to what delivery has grown, I think that's going to take time.
Thank you so much for your time and the insights you provided to us. I hope that this becomes a very informative talk for people who are looking to start their careers in the supply chain and logistics space. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vipul. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.